And welcome back. Here is part 2 of the Past Sins Prelude. As the fires grew, the air in the clearing became so thick with magic it almost became tangible. Above the ritual, the cloaked Pegasi cult members also held bowls of burning powder. With torches of their own, the armored Greygale and Nightshade flew around to light the bowls kept aloft above the clearing. When all the bowls were lit, Nexus used his magic to take the fire from one, gently holding it in the air and keeping the flickering flame alive. He brought the fire over the bowl containing the shreds of Nightmare Moon and bloodied the dagger, and then dropped the flame inside. The contents burst into flame almost instantly, Nexus quickly retreating to the edge of the circle to join his fellow unicorns. There, they all began to twist and form the magic in the air. Working like potters with clay, they shaped the free magic, molded it, and began to force it down into the bowl that contained the shreds of Nightmare Moon. After a few anxious moments, Nexus saw what he had hoped for. The blood-soaked dagger started to float above the fire. The blood was drawn up from the dagger by the spell and formed into a single crimson sphere before the dagger itself was launched away, its polished metal surface sinking deep into a nearby tree. Black smoke billowed from the central bowl, the shreds of Nightmare Moon starting to burn. The smoke began to form and swirl around the large drop of blood. The fires from the wooden bowls were drawn in, swirling and orbiting the spell's focal point like water in a whirlpool. The drop of blood became encased in a black sphere, and that black sphere began to slowly grow. It drew in the fire and smoke and everything, and grew larger with each passing moment. Yes, it is working, my brothers and sisters. She is beginning to take shape. Our queen shall soon be... The cult ponies jumped probably a foot in the air when a single bolt of lightning raced down the sky and struck the very center of the spell, sundering the metal podium and wrapping the drop of blood, the shreds of Nightmare Moon, and the wooden bowl in crimson flames. Eyes turned upward to the source of the lightning. The cloud cover the cult's Pegasi had carefully placed was blown back as a full battalion of royal guards flew down from the sky. "Freeze! You're all under arrest!" Several of the guards shouted as dozens of other gold-armored Pegasi landed in the center of the clearing. Still, not a single pony froze, the cultists instead charging the guards in an all-out assault. Nexus stood flabbergasted, watching as the center of the spell and the precious shreds of Nightmare Moon were destroyed. All their plans decimated by a single surge of magical lightning. Lightning that could only have come from one source. Turning his eyes skyward, Nexus glared at the next figure to float down through the hole in the clouds. With a single flash of her horn, the figure brushed away the rest of the cloud cover like a froth from a hot cup of cocoa. "Celestia," Nexus forced out through gritted teeth, his turquoise eyes locked on the Sun Princess as she floated down amidst the fighting, casting back any pony that dared attack her with barely a flick of her horn. Inside him, a hatred billowed. Every fiber of Nexus's being wanted him to attack, to smite down the Sun Princess for daring to interrupt the ritual. But he knew better. "Don't think you've won today, Sun Tyrant. You merely delayed me at best," Nexus hissed, his horns starting to glow. Greygale, Nightwind, Stonewall, and a number of other cultists gathered near Nexus as the magic flowed from the unicorn's horn. The group then seemed to disappear in thin air, though a number of hoofprints took shape in the ground as the now invisible cultists fled from the Everfree Forest. "Have you apprehended all involved?" the Sun Princess asked, her eyes locked on the guard that stood before her. Celestia currently sat in the Ponyville library. After rescuing Twilight, the princess had taken her student home and sent her straight to bed. Twilight resisted a bit, but after going through such a stressful situation, it didn't take much to get the unicorn to fall asleep. Celestia had turned the library into a base of operations, keeping guard of her student personally while having her guards bring the reports to her. "We captured a great number of those involved, but we believe some were able to escape by using magic to disguise themselves," the guard reported, head bowed respectfully to the alicorn. "We followed the tracks, but they eventually ended, and as if they realized their mistake and corrected it before we could catch them. Still, we are continuing to search the forest with the aid of that zebra that reported your student's pony napping."
"Yes, Zecora. Please make sure that she is properly thanked for all she has done this evening. Also, please extend to her an invitation to the palace so that she may join Luna and I for dinner on an evening of her choosing."
"Of course, Princess," the guard answered as he raised his head. "Though, if I may ask, what were these ponies trying to do?"
"I do not know.
Celestia admitted.
All we were able to get from them was the information gathered prior to this night that something was going to happen, and that Twilight had her head covered by a thick sack for most of the pony napping. She doesn't know enough for us to ascertain the group's purpose.
What about the spell?
The spell is not something I recognize. If it is from a book or an ancient scroll, then I have not read of it. But it could as easily have been a new spell, a ritual crafted for a specific purpose, though that purpose still remains to be unearthed. Make sure that the details of the spell itself remain preserved. It will need to be studied.
The guard snapped into a salute. Of course, Princess! We will gather any evidence of the scene and have it taken to the castle until such time it can be examined.
Good. I have no doubt that the spell's purpose was dark, and I will not stand for my student being threatened,
Celestia said, her eyebrows furrowing with determination.
I want the truth of this revealed, Captain, with all haste.
Of course, Your Majesty. The unicorn guards searched the area, sweeping it with magic and trying to detect anything left behind. What remained of the wooden bowls were gathered, and any unburnt powder was collected together into a single bag. Everything and anything that was not natural to the Everfree forest was taken from the clearing, though the guards did not extend their search into the bordering trees and bushes once it became clear the ritual's radius ended at the tree line. All that was gathered was loaded into a waiting chariot, and once the unicorns were finished, the Pegasi hitched to the chariot took flight. They rose quickly into the sky before banking towards Canterlot as the unicorns below watched their fellow soldiers until they vanished beyond the treetops. All right, stallions. Let's go join the group searching for the forest for any of the cult members that might have escaped, the lieutenant directing the cleanup ordered. You've higher priority to any that appear to be unicorns. One of them has some kind of crazy magic to get away, and we don't want it to happen a second time. Sir, shouldn't some of us remain here? One of the soldiers spoke up, a newer recruit to the Royal Guard. What for? The lieutenant snapped, glaring down this soldier that dared to question his orders. To guard the crime scene, sir, the younger soldier replied, standing in staunch attention as the lieutenant walked right up to him. No, we've gathered everything of importance. But what if the cultists come back, sir? Listen close, because I'm only going to say this once, the lieutenant snapped, glaring down the overly vocal soldier. Any criminal worth his salt will get as far away from the scene of his crime as possible. These ponies are crazy, but they're not stupid. They won't be coming back. The younger guard opened his mouth to speak, but the lieutenant continued on, ignoring him. Besides that, this isn't Central Park in Canterlot. Everfree is dangerous. There are monsters in here that would eat a pony twice my size in a single gulp, armor and all. This isn't a place we want to spend any more time than necessary. But if you want to stay here and guard the scene of the crime, be my guest. Just watch out for the hydras, the veteran guard concluded, beginning to walk out of the clearing, the rest of the soldiers following behind him, heading out into the forest to join the search. Only the guard who had spoken up did not move, remaining in the clearing as others disappeared amongst the trees. He remained there for a minute at best before the lieutenant's words got to him. The soldier broke into a gallop as he left the clearing, sprinting to catch up with his comrades. Still, the magic that lingered in the air like a heavy mist began to shift, sparking a bit in the cool night air as it was drawn to one side of the clearing. There, hidden away by a bush, a black sphere lay amongst the dirt. A sphere which was cast away from the center of the spell by Celestia's bolt of arcane lightning. A sphere that, at its heart, contained the blood of a certain purple unicorn. The magic that lingered in the clearing flowed into the sphere, drawn to it like metal to a magnet. As the arcane energy was absorbed, the sphere grew, continuing the process begun by the spell Celestia had interrupted. And there we have Past Sin's prelude.